The dawn barely touched the worn cobblestones of ancient Rome as you stirred in your cramped insula. The chill of early morning seeped through the cracked walls, barely chased away by the weak sunlight filtering from a dusty window. The pale blue of the winter sky loomed above, dull and unforgiving, like a sheet of cold silk laid over the city's restless heart. Your fingers brushed against the rough, threadbare fabric of your only tunic. Stiff from nights of barely shedding warmth, a faint sourness hung in the air, the staleness of old bread mingled with the distant, unwashed scent of a city squeezed tight. Somewhere down the street, wooden clogs slapped in rhythm, a metallic with practiced urgency, their shouts slicing through the fog. If a no-battery moment in today's world is a minor apocalypse, leaving you stranded mid-scroll, imagine then the desperation of biting into bread riddled with sawdust, a cheap filler that robbed even this staple of dignity. The food was humble at best, and the Romans' so-called junk was a modest handful of fried chickpeas, salty olives, and shards of bread soaked in garum, a pungent fish sauce that filled your mouth with a salty sting and the faint, lingering whiff of the sea. Your stomach growled, as it always did in these narrow, shadowed streets, a reminder that survival meant adapting to whatever morsels the day offered. Outside, the chatter of neighbors buzzed low, punctuated by the soft hiss of the public fountain and the temple bells tolling in their slow, methodic cadence. The scent of wetted stone and dust combined, clinging to your skin like a second cloak. You swept the cracked floor, your simple broom scraping the dust in repetitious arcs. Each motion was a small ritual, oddly soothing despite its monotony. A shared smile passed between you and a fellow tenant across the hall, a flicker of warmth in the endless grind. In this unremarkable rhythm, little moments of humanity glimmered like faint embers against the gray. Then, seemingly unprovoked, the distant commotion died with alarming abruptness. The usual barks scattered by street dogs fell silent. A hush threaded through the murmurs, so faint that only a keen ear could catch it. You exchanged a glance with your neighbor, an unspoken realization passing between you like a shadow. What unmarked shift was this, creeping quietly in the depths of the waking city? Hey, before Morpheus grabs you for good, quickly check that you're still subscribed. For some, the button disappeared, and I don't want you to miss the next bedtime stories. Take a moment and drop a like as soft as a pillow. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? Your interaction keeps this little calm corner alive. Thanks for being part of it. The sudden quiet wraps around the city like a thick shroud, squeezing the life from the usual morning chaos. You freeze mid-sweep, the rough bristles of your broom scratching softly against the worn stone floor. Somewhere beyond the fog, a stray dog tilts its head, ears twitching, as if trying to pick up a faint, distant whisper. Then silence. The dull blue sky hangs low, relentless in its chill, as if even the heavens are holding their breath. Your pulse quickens, sensing the invisible shift that slipped in unnoticed, like fog rolling over the ruins. The usual harmony of cobblestone clatter, hawkers' shouts, and children's laughter has evaporated. Instead, an eerie stillness presses against your lungs, making each breath feel sharper, heavier. You glance through the grimy window, eyes narrowing. Down the street, figures stand motionless, frozen mid-conversation or pause, their faces knitting in confused concern. A vendor's cart leans slightly, abandoned, scattered chickpeas crunching underfoot, forgotten, like yesterday's worries. That sour, lingering tang of stale bread thickens in the air, almost tangible now, more oppressive. Silence has teeth. From somewhere distant, a bell tolls irregularly, no longer steady, now staggered as though the city's time itself stutters, a heartbeat gone awry. Your muscles tense. A swarm of shivers crawls up your spine against the stubborn cold that the thin walls of your insula cannot keep out. This is no ordinary morning. Outside, a shadow lengthens unexpectedly, stretching like a dark stain across the street. You catch a flicker of movement, but it's swallowed instantly by the pale winter light, like a whisper lost to the wind. A single leaf twirls down, carried by an unseen breath, landing at your door. It's withered, cracked, a burnt orange shard among the gray. A dull rumble, faint but growing, vibrates in the stone beneath your feet. It pulses like distant thunder, but with an unnatural cadence, deep, unsettling, as if the ground mourns in low moans. You swallow hard, your throat dry, as your eyes dart to the hallway where your neighbor's door is slightly ajar. A sliver of golden light spills from the gap, flickering erratically. Against the gloom, it looks like a beacon or a warning flame, wavering in simmering unease. You step cautiously toward it, leaving the brittle ritual of sweeping behind. The closer you get, the thicker the tension becomes. You catch snippets of hushed whispers, too muddled to grasp fully, threading with sharp breaths and the rustle of hurried movements. A creak, and then silence again. Peeking inside, you see your neighbor, an older woman with tired eyes, her fingers trembling as she clutches a small, dirty cloth. She looks up, startled, then offers a faint, weary smile that fractures the growing dread. "You felt it too," she murmurs, voice barely above a breath. Before you can answer, the air itself seems to twist. A gust slaps through the open window, rattling loose papers and dead leaves like restless spirits. The scent of the city's staleness gives way for a moment to something sharper, colder, like metal wrapped in frost. It seeps in, a silent invader, curling around your bones. From down the street, a sudden cry shatters the quiet, unnatural, piercing, more a wail than a voice. Heads turn toward it, faces pale and drawn, as if looking into an abyss. The cry is cut short, choked off mid-scream, leaving only a strangled echo hanging over the rooftops. You step back, heart pounding, the warmth of your neighbor's presence suddenly a fragile thread. This is no ordinary winter morning. Something, unseen and unyielding, is moving through Rome's veins. Outside, the few figures still lingering begin to stir, their movement slow, hesitant, as if waking from a long, troubled dream. You catch a glimpse of a man clutching his chest, staggering beneath an invisible weight. His eyes are glassy, distant, haunted by something he cannot name. The chill bites deeper now, and the city's relentless pulse falters as distant drums, low, rhythmic, and hollow, rise from the shadowed alleys. The once steady beat of daily life fractures, replaced by a new cadence, one of tension, dread, and silent foreboding. And then, above the quiet street, a solitary raven calls, a sharp, cutting cry that slices through the mist. Its wings beat slow and heavy, casting a fleeting shadow over the cracked stones like an omen traced in flight. You press your palm against the cool wall, grounding yourself. The city is waiting, holding its breath beneath that endless sheet of winter blue. Beyond the cracked windows and shuttered doors, something stirs, ancient, restless, and hungry. Your gaze flits back to the street, where shadows pool and mingle, darkening with each passing moment, as if the light itself is being devoured. And in that brief flash of final quiet, the unsettling truth unfolds. The stillness is not calm. It is the eye before the storm, the heavy pause before chaos, embroidered with whispers. Something has awoken. Something older than Rome, colder than winter's breath, and it's coming closer. The flickering light from your neighbor's door dwindles, just as the heavy silence tightens its grip around the narrow hallway. You hesitate, every nerve alert, as the low, distant drumming continues, uneasy and irregular, like a heartbeat stumbling through dark waters. The cold seeps deeper now, curling fingers twisting beneath your tunic, prying for warmth that's long fled. A shadow shifts just beyond your window pane, barely perceptible, but enough to catch your eye. Outside, figures remain frozen, statues caught mid-step or mid-word, faces etched with confusion and dawning fear. The mother's lips move soundlessly to soothe a child who refuses to cry. Somewhere a utensil drops, a faint clatter swallowed instantly by the oppressive quiet. You swallow your own breath, suddenly conscious that the air itself feels thick, as if tangled with unseen threads. You step back from the door, your fingers brushing the cold stone walls, grounding yourself against the rising tide of dread. The small fire flickering from a worn brazier across the hall draws your gaze, a fragile heart beating with orange light amid the encroaching gray. For a brief moment, warmth flickers inside you, a tiny rebellion against the merciless winter that suffocates the city. Then a sudden crack rends the stillness. The ancient timber beams groan as a sharp tremor runs through the building beneath your feet. Dust flutters down like pale ash, settling in thin layers over broken pottery and forgotten trinkets. The pulse beneath you quickens, unsteady, alive, like a creature stirring from a long slumber. Outside, the city breathes uneasily. Windows rattle in trembling frames. A loose tile skitters down a drainpipe, its hollow kiss against stone, a startling echo in the quiet. Somewhere beyond the fog, a low wail rises, raw and ragged, part human, part something else. It pierces the heart of the city, bouncing off the ancient walls, lingering like a wound that refuses to heal. You turn away from the threshold, inching toward your scant possessions, fingers close over the rough wood of your broom handle, the one artifact left from routines that once meant normalcy. But routine has fled. The very walls seem to lean inward, secrets trembling beneath their cracked plaster. Deeper into the insula, a distant murmur rises, a contagious whisper threading its way through corridors, a chorus of hushed voices laced with fear. Your neighbor's frail silhouette emerges in the doorway across the hall. Eyes wide, but gaze unfocused, lips moving with urgent whispers you cannot catch. She steps back and lights a tiny oil lamp, its fragile glow shivering in the cold air. You cross the hall together, drawn not by camaraderie, but by the silent promise of shared unease. Her trembling hand passes you the lamp, the small flame flickering in your palm like a heartbeat held against the dark. Outside, the muffled sound of footsteps stirs, uneasy shuffles, hesitant but increasing, echoing faintly like ghosts seeking refuge in abandoned streets. The distant chiming of temple bells falters, each toll warped and irregular, unmoored from its sacred rhythm. The sky darkens imperceptibly, the pale blue of morning dimming as if smothered beneath an invisible shroud. A gust pushes through the cracks, chasing dead leaves in restless spirals, carrying with it the sharp scent of iron and frost. Your gaze drifts to the street again, where shadows lengthen unnaturally, pooling like spilled ink across the stones. Shapes move just beyond clarity, half-seen figures slipping into the fog. The city's breath hesitates, a collective exhale, held tight in lungs refusing release. Suddenly, a cry shatters the fragile calm. A sound raw with pain and panic, rising and folding back into silence before full release. It is a scream half swallowed, a story unfinished, hanging in the brittle air. Heads snap toward the source, faces pale and drawn tight, with something nameless and primal. You feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing in, a suffocating presence curling around the narrow alleyways and rooftops. The steady rhythm of life is broken, fractured, like cracked pottery, its fragments sharp and unpredictable. Your heart hammers against your ribs, breath shallow as you inch toward the windowsill. Beyond the frosted glass, a raven circles low, its black wings cutting through the pale dawn as if slicing the veil of reality itself. Its cry, a sharp, clear note, lingers longer this time, but dire announcement carried on the cold breath of the morning. Beneath you, the ground trembles again, slower now, more deliberate, as if echoing an ancient grief. The faint vibrations thread through your bones, a warning carried from deep beneath Rome's storied stones. You clutch the wooden lamp tighter, its flickering flame, the only light pushing back the gathering dusk. The city waits, suspended in a tense stillness that hums with the weight of secrets best left undisturbed. A cold wind sweeps through the open window, carrying with it the distant scent of burning wood and something else, a metallic tang sharper than the winter air, sharp enough to sting. Your eyes dart to the hall, where your neighbor's door is now fully open, the golden light spilling wider into the shadows. Inside, shadows flicker and twist against the cracked walls, dancing like whispered spirits summoned by the growing darkness. And then, above the muted chaos, a new sound emerges, a slow, haunting melody hummed on cracked lips, rising and falling like a ghost's lament, threading through the frozen streets. It coils through the silence, wrapping tight around the narrow passageways and shuttered windows. You hold your breath, the fragile flame wobbling in your palm, because in the heart of Rome's uneasy dawn, as shadows deepen and the city itself seems to hold its breath, one truth becomes chillingly clear. This is not a moment paused before chaos. It is the beginning. You step back from your neighbor's open door, the warm glow of her lamp, now a fragile barrier against the deepening chill that rushes through the insula. The shadows seem to breathe, curling and stretching along the cracked plaster, as though eager to spill out into the narrow hallway. Your fingers tighten around the wooden broom handle, its roughness anchoring you to something familiar amid the rising unease. Outside, the city remains unnervingly still. The distant bells, once pacing the morning, now jerk and falter, as if caught in a struggle between two tempos, one measured, the other chaotic. Your gaze catches a faint silhouette down the street, frozen Mid-step, a vendor's cart tipped awkwardly with spilled chickpeas, glittering like tiny, broken promises across the stones. No clacking of wooden clogs slices the air here. Silence has swallowed the city's heartbeat whole. A breath escapes you in a thin cloud, hanging briefly before dissolving into the gray. The stale scent of old bread and dust lingers, heavier now, thickening the air into something almost edible, suffocating in its familiarity. From somewhere just out of sight, you catch the soft rustling of dry leaves, carried by a gust that slips through broken shutters and unseen cracks. It curls around your ankles, whispering secrets too faint to understand. A sudden tremor reverberates beneath your feet, short and uneven, like the earth itself groans beneath the weight of some ancient sorrow. Dust flutters from the cracked ceiling, specks of pale ash settling onto the cold stones. Your heartbeat hammers a frantic rhythm, drowning out the stillness and filling your ears with a sense of urgent warning. The lamp in your palm flickers violently, casting sharp, dancing shadows that stretch and recoil like phantoms on the walls. The fragile light seems to fight against the darkness, pressing in, a tiny rebellion against the storm that gathers beyond this cramped refuge. Your neighbor steps into the hallway, her silhouette shaking like a leaf caught in an unseen breeze. Her eyes, dark pools of quiet fear, meet yours for a moment before she opens her mouth, whispering words swallowed instantly by the heavy air. You catch only fragments, warnings, perhaps, or prayers, but their meaning slips away, lost in the low hum that rises through the building, threadbare and insistent. Outside, an agonized cry tears through the silence, a raw, ragged sound, half human and jarringly unnatural. Heads turn toward the source, faces slackening under the weight of terror, eyes wide and unblinking. The cry halts abruptly, strangled mid-scream, leaving a hollow echo that quivers over the rooftops like a wounded animal. You draw a breath, sharp with cold, the air crisp enough to sting your lungs. The hall's growing gloom presses in, a suffocating veil woven from shadows and dread, wrapping tighter with every passing second. From the window, your sight catches a movement, a bird, nimble and dark, slicing through the thinning light. The raven circles once, twice, its wings casting fleeting darkness across the frostbitten stones. Its call pierces through the murk like a judge's gavel, cracking the fragile calm just a little more. In that fleeting moment, the city itself seems to exhale. A low, rhythmic drum begins to sound, distant but growing, its heavy beat vibrating through the cobblestones and walls. It is slow, relentless, like a mournful heartbeat, marking time for something far older than the buildings that enclose you. You shift your weight, eyes scanning the dim hallway. The neighbor's door has closed quietly behind her, leaving the flickering lamp isolated in your grasp. The fragile glow wavers as if uncertain against the encroaching shadow, and you feel the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting. Outside, the silhouettes, stirring, grow bolder. Figures step cautiously into the dim light, their movements slow and halting, like men waking from a terrible dream. Faces drawn tight with confusion, brows furrowing as if wrestling with a nameless dread. A man clutches his chest, legs shaky, eyes glassy and distant, as if seeing something you cannot. The cold sneaks deeper beneath your thin tunic, coiling around ribs and bone. It carries a scent sharper than smoke, metallic, bitter, with the faintest trace of something burned. It fills your nostrils and settles cold in your lungs. You take a cautious step toward the window. The city's pulse, once steady and familiar, shudders beneath a whispering tension that coalesces like fog seeping through every crack and crevice. The drunken toll of the bells continues, each clang a note in a disordered dirge, summoning the ancient city awake to a new, dark refrain. Then from just beyond the horizon's pale winter light, a glint shimmers faintly, like a promise or a warning, caught in the eye of a slanting sunbeam. You blink, and it vanishes, swallowed by thickening shadows. The murmur of growing footsteps echoes softly now, uneven and hurried. They weave through the alleys, gathering like a restless tide, hungrily drawn to a shifting beacon in the distance. The air vibrates with anticipation, an unseen current, pulling everything and everyone towards an unknown reckoning. Your hand tightens around the lamp's fragile handle, flame flickering perilously. The walls seem to lean in closer, whispering secrets of the city's ancient past, stirred awake for reasons older than memory. And just as the first heavy shadow unfurls fully across the street, melding with the gathering dusk, a sudden, breath-stealing silence falls, dense and expectant, like the turning of a page whose words hold a dark promise. Something moves, something watching, and it is nearer than you dared imagine. The chill in the air thickened, pressing against your skin like a wet cloak as you steadied the flickering flame in your trembling hand. Outside, the city's breath faltered, caught in an invisible snare woven tight by the sudden weight of silence. Every shadow seemed to pulse, swelling and ebbing with the soft, uneven drumbeat, still echoing faintly beneath the stones, an ancient lament drifting upward, distant but unyielding. Your eyes flicked to the window, where the raven made its slow, deliberate circles. Its obsidian wings cleave through the pale dawn, slicing into the thinning light as if to shred the fragile veil of morning. The bird's piercing cry shattered the stillness again, lingering long after its dark silhouette vanished behind the fog. That cry, raw and mournful, hooked into your ribs like a bone, keenly gnawed, stirring an ancient unease you had no name for. The street below, once frozen in confusion, now sighed with subtle shifts. Figures moved, slow, hesitant, as if rousing from a deep, troubled dream. Faces etched with a mix of fear and disbelief. Their footsteps soft but deliberate against cobbles that had long held Rome's secrets. The sour tang of stale bread and dust deepened still, thick in the air now, curling through the narrow insula's corridors like a slow poison. The faint metallic bite, sharp as frost on iron, that had seeped in moments before, lingered, setting your teeth on edge. Every breath pulled the cold deeper into your lungs, etching its persistent chill beneath your ribs. A sudden shift came from the hallway. The fragile lamp in your palm sputtered, casting wild shadows that danced like trapped spirits on cracked walls. Your neighbor's door creaked softly as it opened just a crack more, revealing her pale, lined face. Her eyes, wide yet resigned, met yours with a desperation that cracked the brittle shell of dread. She whispered something urgent, breathless, a warning, a plea. The words slipped through the heavy air and dissolved into the thickening gloom. Behind her, the lamp's feeble flame struggled, a faltering heartbeat resisting encroaching darkness. Just as you prepared to speak, the building shuddered again, a deeper tremor, resonant and slow, crawling beneath your feet like a beast waking from centuries of slumber. Dust rained softly from the ceiling, settling on the cold stone with mournful finality. Your heart ticked faster, matching the rhythm of something vast, stirring below the city's ancient bones. From the street, distant voices murmur, low and tangled with fear. The temple bells faltered again, every toll discordant, an erratic pulse unmoored from its sacred cycle. Somewhere, a child's silent tears glistened on a pale cheek, grief caught in silent protest. You took a tentative step toward the door, the broom long forgotten, its rough handle pressing cold into your palm. Behind you, the darkened insula seemed to exhale a slow breath of decay, shadows pooling and spreading in the corners like spilled ink. The oppressive quiet wrapped around you, a suffocating cloak woven from dread and ancient secrets. Outside, the sky shifted imperceptibly, wounds of pale blue fading into bruised gray. The sun, a weak promise behind heavy clouds, offered no comfort, only a dim wash of light that barely touched the worn stones. Dead leaves scuttled across the street in restless spirals, driven by a wind carrying something elemental and yet unfamiliar. Iron, frost, and the eerie residue of burned wood. A shape appeared beyond the fog, too quick, too subtle to grasp. A flicker of movement, swallowed whole by the dense hush. Your breath caught as the distant rumbling swelled again, deeper now, rolling like the slow. Somewhere in the distance, a deep, unsteady wail rose, a sound neither fully human nor wholly natural, raw and torn, rising and folding back into the silence like a wounded beast's call. You pressed your forehead against the cooling stone wall, grounding yourself in the moment, searching for reason where none seemed to reside. Slow footsteps thrummed closer, weaving through the narrow streets, each one hesitant, but growing more insistent. Shadows lengthened, cooling into a dark river, surging toward the heart of the city. A man appeared suddenly, pale and slack-jawed, clutching his chest as if to hold back something invisible, his glassy eyes reflecting a terror that went beyond fear. The lamp's flame danced wildly, throwing fractured light across your face. The cold gnawed at your bones. With relentless persistence, the metallic scent, sharp and biting in your nostrils, it brought with it a weight, a knowing that pulled at the edges of your mind like a half-forgotten dream. Something old, something waiting beneath Rome's storied stones. Outside, the raven called once more, its cry slicing clean through the mist. It circled just above the rooftops, the dark sentinel watching over a city caught between epochs. The drumbeat beneath the streets grew louder, slow, deliberate, steady. The city held its breath on the cusp of reckoning, the fragile calm broken with a suddenness that left no time for warning. Your heart jumped, the lamp's flame quivering wildly, a beacon flickering in the vast, gathering dark. And then, from the depths of the silent street, a new sound emerged, a slow, deliberate presence unfolding just beyond sight. Something moved, something ancient, and it had begun to watch you. The cold pressed harder now, the icy fingers curling tightly around your ribs as you stepped away from the fragile light of the lamp. The dim hallway seemed to close in, the cracked plaster whispering secrets that your ears strained to decipher but could only catch as breathless murmurs. Beyond the open doorway, your neighbor's silhouette dissolved into the deepening shadow, like a fading echo, an uncertain hope amid the sprawling unease. Outside, the city's pulse faltered. The ritual of daily life had unraveled completely. The frozen figures down the street, silent witnesses to a paused world, stood like marionettes caught in tangled strings, their faces etched with confusion and something darker, flickered between pale disbelief and apprehension. The stray leaves that skittered along stone gutters traced arabesques in the brittle air, as if dancing to a melody whispered only to the wind. A new tremor rolled through the cobblestones beneath your feet, a hollow groan that rattled the insula's worn beams. Slow, deliberate, like the heartbeat of something vast and ancient, sputtering back to life. It was as if the city itself exhaled a breath long held, one that carried with it the weight of an unspoken curse. You tightened your grip on the lamp, the weak flame quavering against the chill. Its flicker cast an uneven glow over the rough stone walls, etching sharp, transient shadows that trembled like restless ghosts. The cold slipped past your thin tunic, biting deeper with each heartbeat, bringing with it a metallic tang, sharp as winter frost, that gripped your throat and crept beneath your skin. A soft murmur floated toward you. Voices from the other end of the insula, low and urgent, tangled with fear and hurried whispers. The door across the hall shifted slightly. Your neighbor's worn features emerged again, lines deepened by dread, eyes searching, pleading. She ventured words you almost caught, warnings, perhaps prayers, but the heavy air swallowed them, leaving only a fragile silence trailing behind. The distant temple bells faltered once more. Their uneven tolls clanged discordantly through the city, the sound fragmented and offbeat, as if the divine rhythm that once marked Rome's waking hours had snapped. Somewhere, faint yet unmistakable, a child stirred, silent tears glinting on a pale cheek, the muted heartbreak of innocence caught in an impossible moment. You exhaled slowly, the silence once more. Below, figures began to move, not with the usual urgency of mourning, but with the hesitance of those waking from a nightmare. Shadows lengthened, flowing across the slick stones like a slow flood swelling beneath a dam about to break. Faces were pale, drawn tight with disbelief, eyes glazed as if glimpsing a specter beyond human sight. A man stumbled into view, clutching his chest, trembling beneath the impossible pressure crushing his chest. His legs betrayed him, knees buckling under an invisible weight. The glassy distortion in his eyes whispered of horrors unseen, of a terror ancient and relentless. You shifted your gaze downward, heart pounding as the tremor deepened, a slow rolling pulse, migrating like sorrow, awakened beneath the city's earthen spine. Each beat seemed to chisel away certainty, carving deeper fissures in the fragile calm that remained. Your hand trembled, the lamp's flame flickering wildly, as if caught in the breath of some unseen storm. The chill magnified, tendrils of cold weaving through your bones, pulling at your senses with a prickling sharpness. The air tasted of scorched wood and iron, bitter and raw, hinting at fires not yet seen, but already burning in the blood of the city. From the fog beyond, a flicker, a flash of light that vanished in an instant. You blinked, heart skipping at the ghost of a promise, a warning half glimpsed before darkness claimed it again. Your ears caught the uneven rhythm of hastening footsteps, soft at first, then swelling in a slow crescendo that wove through alleys and courtyards like a restless tide. They stirred the silence into a restless murmur, a gathering storm converging on the city's fragile heart. The once steady cadence of everyday life had shattered, replaced by a new beat, slow, ominous, inevitable. The lamp in your hand flickered once more, its pale glow a fragile defiance against the encroaching dusk. It was the solitary pulse of light amid a world tipping into shadow. And then, from the depths of the silent street beyond the insula, A new sound emerged. A breath, a stir, a rhythm. Cold, deliberate, watching. Something moved. Something ancient. Closer than you dared imagine. The lamp in your hand flickers again, its weak glow trembling like a heartbeat, trying to break through the thickening dusk. Outside, the frozen figures remain scattered down the street, their faces pale masks, etched with confusion and an unspoken fear. The shadows pool deeper by the moment, licking up the cracked stones like dark ink expanding across parchment. A soft, bitter wind whispers its way through the alleyways, carrying with it the sharp tang of frost and something heavier, metallic, cold, almost like the scent of iron mingled with ash. It curls around your ankles, slipping beneath your tunic in restless spirals, a chill that burrows past skin and settles deep where warmth once lived. You steady your breath, each inhale biting like the edge of a winter blade. The insula feels smaller now, the shadows creeping closer to the fragile circle of light cast by your flickering flame. The worn wooden broom in your other hand is forgotten, its rough handle pressing against your palm, a remnant of rituals now useless against the gathering unknown. From the gloom down the hall, your neighbor's door stands ajar, the golden light within battling stoically against the encroaching dark. She stands just inside, her form a wavering silhouette, eyes wide and glistening with unshed fear. Her lips part, and words fall, fragments barely caught by your ears. Warnings, perhaps, prayers, or desperate attempts to hold back something threatening, to unravel the fabric of this fragile morning. Outside, the distant temple bells shudder again, their solemn tolls stretched unevenly, warping the sacred rhythm like a heartbeat gone misshapen. Somewhere beyond the veil of fog, a ragged cry fractures the silence, half human, half something else, piercing the city's tightened chest before it is cruelly silenced, leaving a wounded echo to bleed slowly across the rooftops. You swallow hard, the cold catching in your throat as your eyes dart to the street once more. Figures begin to stir, slow, hesitant movements, as if waking from a dream, too terrible to grasp fully. Faces are drawn tight, lips pressed into thin lines, eyes wide and glazed, trapped in the haunting space between recognition and disbelief. A man staggers, clutching at his chest, knees buckling beneath the invisible weight, crushing his breath. The glassiness in his stare reflects specters only you seem unable to see. The rhythmic drumbeat beneath the stones grows louder, slow, deliberate, as if marking time for an ancient sorrow long buried beneath the city's age-worn bones. The vibration hums through your feet, threading into your spine, tightening a coil of tension that refuses to unwind. Around you, the very air feels dense, thick with secrets and omens knitting themselves into a tapestry of foreboding. The ravens cry, slices through the murk once more. Its obsidian wings beat heavy and slow, casting a fleeting shadow that crosses the frost-bitten cobbles like a dark herald carved from the sky. And the bird circles low, as if warning, its sharp call reverberating in the cold, a fragile echo of primal warning whispered from one era to the next. In that moment, a sliver of movement catches your attention, a faint shimmer where the street bends, as if reality itself is cracking and a breath of light escapes through the fracture. But just as quickly, it vanishes, swallowed by the thickening shadows fleeing back to their dark corners. Your grip tightens around the lamp's handle, the flames sputtering but refusing to die. The walls of the insula seem to lean closer, bearing down as if intent on swallowing the tiny blaze that stubbornly defies the abyss. A faint murmur drifts from nearby, a thread of voices tangled in fear and haste, weaving through the corridors like restless ghosts. Your neighbor's silhouette reappears briefly, her eyes pleading, the urgency in her whispered words dissolved again into the oppressive silence. Outside, the footsteps fall faster now, weaving through the labyrinth of streets like unwelcome tidewaters swelling towards a rising storm. The shadows morph and stretch, pooling into a flood that threatens to wash away the fragile calm that barely holds alongside the breaking dawn. You take a careful step forward, the cold biting sharper with each movement, gnawing deep beneath skin and bone. The scent of burnt wood and raw iron grows stronger, a metallic bitterness that etches itself into your memory like a warning scar. It speaks of fires unseen, smoldering beneath Rome's storied surface, of broken things waiting to be set free. Then, from the depths of the quiet street, a new sound threads its way toward you, a slow, deliberate rhythm, steady and patient as a predator stalking just beyond the edge of sight. It coils around the narrow passageways, curling through shattered windows and shuttered doors. Like a ghostly lament, the flickering lamp casts long, nervous shadows that dance on your face. Your heart hammers a fierce rhythm against your ribs as you stare into the gloom, senses straining to detect the shape behind the sound. And then, just beyond the reach of your fragile candlelight, something shifts, a slow, watching presence, ancient and vast, a whispered breath across the stones. It is not just the city holding its breath anymore. You do too. Because whatever it is coming closer. The lamp's fragile flame trembled in your grasp as you stepped back from the threshold, the weight of the insula pressing close around your shoulders like a damp shroud. The air felt colder now, as if winter itself had folded inward, sucking out the breath of the city. Outside, the silence remained thick, the unnatural stillness smothering every usual sound. No clatter of wooden clogs, no shouts of hawkers, just a shivering quiet, stretching along the narrow street. You turned your gaze to the window, where the raven circled low, its black wings slicing through the pale, fading light, an ominous silhouette against the bruised sky. Its cry, sharp and echoing, pierced the silence once again, a jagged note that lingered like a warning, carved into the chill air. The faint rumble beneath your feet pulsed again, slower this time, sinking deep into the stone and bone of Rome. It was a restless heartbeat, deliberate, steady, as if something ancient stirred far beneath the city's worn skin. You swallowed the sudden lump in your throat, the metallic tang stronger now, biting at your tongue. It wasn't just the cold. It smelled of rust and burned iron, memories of fires long buried, yet still smoldering beneath the quiet streets. Your neighbor's door creaked open wider, the golden lamplight spilling into the shadowed hallway like a fragile promise. She stood there, face drawn and pale, eyes wide, but blinking fast to hold back the dread. Her voice was a mere breath, tremulous and hurried, words caught in the tangle of fear and pleading you couldn't quite grasp. The shadows clung to the edges of her figure, pulling her slowly back into the gloom, as though reluctant to let go. You stepped closer, heart hammering. The lamp flickered again, battling the cold drafts creeping through the cracked walls. Behind you, the insula's silence deepened, punctuated only by the soft rustle of dead leaves frenzying along the stone floor. The chill wrapped tightly around your ribs, pressing in like a vice, squeezing the fragile warmth from your bones. From the street, a faint murmur rose, a chorus of whispered voices, hesitant steps shifting uncertainly on the cobblestones. Figures began to move, slow, as if roused from a long, troubling sleep. Faces were pale, drawn like aged parchment, eyes glassy with disbelief or something darker, something raw and unspoken lurking beneath the skin. A man staggered into your line of sight, clutching at his chest, knees wobbling beneath the invisible weight crushing him. His gaze met yours for a vague moment, haunted and distant, before he dissolved back into the folding shadows. The sour smell of stale bread clung heavier now, mixing uncomfortably with the sharp metallic scent that stung your nostrils. Outside the window, the temple bells faltered again, their uneven tolls bouncing off ancient walls like a funeral dirge losing its way. Somewhere in the distance, a child's silent tears shimmered on a pale cheek, grief suspended in a moment lost to time and terror. The trembling dust from the crumbling ceiling whispered down, settling like ghostly snow over broken pottery and forgotten memories. The air was thick with something approaching despair, yet beneath it glimmered a fragile flicker, the warm pulse of your neighbor's lamp resisting the dark. The distant drumbeat grew louder, insistent now, a slow, measured rhythm threading through the veins of the city, heavier with each passing second. It vibrated up through the stones and into your bones, a mournful song for an awakening long overdue. The ragged, half-human cry echoed again, raw, torn, and swiftly stifled, rippling across rooftops like a wounded spirit caught between worlds. Your breath caught, frost blooming on your lips. You pressed the lamp closer, the flame dancing wildly, as if sensing the weight of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. The long fingers of cold crept beneath your tunic, snaking into the hollow between ribs, a sharp scar of winter that no fire could fully chase away. Then, from the fog thickened street, something flickered, a movement barely caught, a shimmer against the dull winter light. You blinked, and it was gone, swallowed instantly by the pooling shadows licking at the stones like spilled ink. The restless footsteps grew louder, weaving and multiplying, swelling like the tide encroaching on a shattered shore. The murmur of the city's breath, ragged and unsteady, a fragile hesitation, trembling between fear and something darker still, anticipation. Your fingers tightened around the lab's handle, the flame sputtering but refusing to die, a solitary heartbeat of warmth amid the gathering chill. The walls seemed to lean closer, listening, holding their breath with you. That slow, persistent rhythm pulsed again beneath the city, the distant drums marking time for something far older than Rome's. Storied walls. The raven's cry cleaved through the air one final time, sharp and clear, a herald of what was coming. And then, just beyond the reach of your flickering light, the shadows coalesced, a shape moving with deliberation, ancient and patient. You held your breath, the flame trembling, caught in the terrifying embrace of the unknown. Because now, you were no longer just a silent witness. You were being watched. The ember of your lamp flickers one last time, casting a fragile circle of light against the cawed shadows of the insula's hallway. You inhale deeply, the cold winter air biting gently at your lungs, but also carrying a subtle promise that the restless stirrings beneath Rome's stones may be settling, retreating, or perhaps simply giving way. Outside, the city's pulse, once chaotic and strangled by unease, begins to find its rhythm again. The frozen figures, scattered like fractured memories down the street, slowly shift, releasing themselves from the heavy grip of paralysis. A mother's silent lips find the courage to soothe her restless child, whose eyes flutter closed as if they too sense a momentary reprieve. The vendor's abandoned cart rests now still and somewhat less lonely beneath pale sun rays that begin to warm the frost-touched stones. A faint yet steady bell toll rings out from the temple, regaining its old cadence. The sound rolls through the empty streets like a gentle wave, washing away the fragmented dissonance that had so recently gripped the city. The fractured rhythm reclaims its place, weaving the scattered notes of daily life back into a whole. Your gaze drifts upward, tracing the slow arc of a raven flying steady and calm, its obsidian wings cutting a darker but softer shadow across the softening dawn. That piercing cry you heard moments ago fades into a muted caw, melting into the chill morning breeze, as if the bird, too, feels the balance returning. The tremors, once unnerving pulses beneath your feet, ease to quiet trembles, a slow exhale from the ancient earth beneath the stones. Dust settles gently from the cracked ceiling, no longer falling in anxious flakes, but drifting like a whispered farewell to the tension that had gripped the insula with invisible claws. The old building seems to breathe with you, its fractured walls embracing the fragile calm that now holds the air. You step cautiously toward the window, tracing the fog lifting from the city's restless breath. The sour tang of stale bread and the bitter metallic note of frost-laden iron recede gradually, replaced by the fresh scent of damp earth and the faint promise of spring's approach, still distant but imaginable. It coils softly around you, a silent lullaby from the city's heart. Your neighbor, appearing steadier now, stands beside you in quiet solidarity. Her trembling has eased into a fragile peace. She offers a faint smile, worn but real, sharing the understanding that whatever unsettled Rome's dawn has passed, or at least paused. The small oil lamp she held now rests gently on the cracked stone windowsill. Its flames starved but unextinguished, much like the resilient spirit you see reflected in her eyes. There are no grand declarations here, no sudden revelations unraveling the mystery you both barely grasped but instinctively faced. Instead, a shared exhale, a moment stretched between rising light and receding shadow, where all that remains is the simple tenacity of surviving the unknown. Slow footsteps return, gentler and less hurried, as figures reanimate from their trance. A man, clutching his chest less tightly now, steadies himself and joins the sparse flow of life returning to the street. Faces once etched in confusion smooth into lines of cautious hope. Hesitant greetings exchanged like fragile bridges over waters still uncharted, but less threatening. The chill that gripped your bones wanes, leaving behind a quiet warmth that neither tunic nor fire can claim, but something deeper, a returning pulse of endurance and a tentative reclaiming of ordinary days. You look out once more, the street bathed now in a tender wash of diffused sun, winter fading slowly as if the city itself exhales a soft farewell to the long night of unrest. Shadows, once thick and invasive, recede with the light, blurring the lines between what was feared and what remains. Inside, the insula's cracked walls hold their stories close, settling again into their timeless watch. Outside, Rome stretches and breathes anew, centuries of rumor and myth wrapped in the folding arms of dawn. The ancient city has witnessed storms far fiercer and shadows deeper than any one of its inhabitants could bear alone. But it survives, quietly in moments like this, where uncertainty is met with stubborn breath, and unseen forces are met with soft resilience. You press your palm to the cool stone wall, feeling its solid permanence, a steady anchor after the tremors of the past hours. The street sounds begin to stir more fully. The distant clatter of wooden sandals, a tentative call of a hawker, the faint laughter of a child finding their voice again. These simple notes weave a subtle, persistent melody that will carry well beyond the echo of today's unsettled dawn. And so you stand there, a witness not only to the shadow, but to the light that always returns. The city's heartbeat slows to a gentle murmur. The night's tension dissolves into the soft haze of morning, a final breath before the world wakes once more. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the quiet wash over you, a river flowing steady and deep, carrying with it the stories, the fears, and the small, stubborn hope of another dawn. Peace settles like dust on old stones, and you feel it too, unfurling in your chest, a calm not born of forgetting, but of surviving. Rome waits patiently, ancient and worn, ready to welcome the next day. And as the sun climbs higher, filtering golden and slow through the narrow windows, you allow yourself a fragile smile. The dark has passed for now, and in the gentle embrace of returning light, you can finally breathe easy.